All right, let's go. We are ready for the next podcast. This time, we're going to be talking about technocracy, and then I'm going to look into the Bank of International Settlements because I think it's kind of important to understand that before we can go any further with tragedy and hope. And to be completely honest, I still haven't slept. It's been about like 5 days. I'm like just drinking like juice, didn't eat anything. So I might not be able to get deep into the book tonight. Plus, I got a bunch of stuff to do still. But while we're here, we will check this out. All right. So first up, we've got David Icke, and then we've got Jean-Francois Garipe. Now, you might not think that these two guys' work is very connected, but I'll try to make a compelling argument that it actually is. Now, first, Sir David has been a conspiracy theorist for time immemorial, as long as I can remember. You know, I read his book, The Truth Shall Set You Free, when I was in college in like 2001. And, you know, his books are like huge, and he has a wealth of knowledge. So anyone saying that, you know, he's crazy, doesn't know what he's talking about, they just haven't really absorbed his entire thesis, I would say. And I mean, to say that everything he's saying is correct, no, but if you understand his thesis, then I would think that you would not think that he's insane. Okay. So David Icke has been predicting a coming technocracy, and here you can see this is his video. Technocracy is replacing democracy, right? And so he's going to lay out his argument as to why he believes technocracy is replacing democracy. And, you know, it's part of his like main thesis. So I would strongly suggest to subscribe to his channel. Now, what does that have to do with JF? Well, JF is, I would say, one of the world's leading geneticists, especially when it comes to the concept of human reproduction. He's a PhD scholar, and he has done, you know, real world experiments on genetics, including with like chimpanzees and things like that. So he knows what he's talking about when it comes to genetics. And he makes very strong arguments, some of the most compelling and scientifically backed arguments as to why we should keep AI or any type of, you know, computer controlled systems as far away from human reproduction as possible, as we possibly can, for as long as we can. So he has very compelling arguments, all backed up by science and research. So to me, these two guys, their arguments go hand in hand. You know, David Icke is telling you who possibly could be doing it and why they want to bring this in, right? And he's, you know, giving compelling arguments for why it will be bad for humanity, depending on what you believe. And then JF's arguments back up his claims with scientific evidence. You know, like his claims, his scientific evidence, he's a libertarian, and he's a strong opponent of having AI systems or any type of computer run systems controlling or deciding or doing anything that involves human reproduction. And I think that his main thesis is that whatever controls or decides our reproduction will basically at some point reproduce us in a way that's beneficial for it, to serve it in a way, you know. possibly, I wouldn't want to say to make it our God, but it would in fact be, if that's his thesis, is that if we allow it to decide for us instead of the natural process of, human attraction, then it can manipulate us into serving it. I think that's the gist of his kind of like argument. I'm not laying it out as eloquently as he does, but he's got the evidence to back up. So so when people are saying, "Oh, well, why shouldn't we do a technocracy?" then you can use his research in your debates as to why we shouldn't why we shouldn't have a technocracy. It's not just, David Icke is predicting it, and he's saying it on a more like philosophical level as to why it's bad. He's been predicting it for years. He knows all the players that are involved in it, and he has very strong philosophical arguments for why technocracy is bad. And then JF goes right into the science. Okay, so let's get into this Bank of International Settlements. Bank for International Settlements. I always say Bank of International Settlements, but it's Bank for International Settlements. The BIS, here it is in Basel, Switzerland. That's a picture of it. Is an international financial institution which is owned by member central banks. Its primary goal is to foster international monetary and financial cooperation while serving as a bank for central banks. With its establishment in 1930, it is the oldest international financial institution. Its initial purpose was to oversee the settlements of World War I war reparations. The Bank for International Settlements carries out its work through its meetings, programs, and through the Basel process, hosting international groups pursuing global financial stability and facilitating their interaction. It also provides banking services, but only to central banks and other international organizations. The Bank for International Settlements is based in Basel, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Switzerland, with representative offices in Hong Kong and Mexico City. Okay. Background. International monetary cooperation started to develop tentatively in the course of the 19th century. An early case was £400,000 loan. Was a £400,000 loan in gold coins in 1825 and facilitated by the Rothschilds from the Bank of France to the Bank of England, which was facing a bank run. The Bank of England again borrowed from its French counterpart and from the Hamburger Bank in 1836 and 1839 and lent to it in return in 1847. Okay. In 1860 to 1861, because of the disruption from an incipient American Civil War, the Bank of France entered a series of swap agreements in specie with the Bank of England, as well as the State Bank of the Russian Empire and the Netherlands Bank. That episode was recorded as the War of the Banks, ostensibly because of the friction between the Bank of France and the Bank of England about the transactions. A few years later, monetary cooperation took a novel form with a series of international monetary conferences devoted to better coordination of the coinage system, even though these initiatives, like the Latin Monetary Union started in 1865, did not extend to money other than coins, and therefore involved treasury and mint officials rather than bankers. At the Brussels Conference in 1892, Germanic academic Julius Wolff submitted a blueprint for an international currency that would be used for emergency lending to national central banks and would be issued by an institution based in a neutral country. In 1893, French economist Raphael Georges Levy suggested the establishment of an international central bank in Bern. In 1907, Italian statesman Luigi Luzzati published an article in the Austrian New Free Press referencing past examples of bilateral cooperation between central banks and emphasizing the need for more institutionalized cooperation at the international level. The practice of formalized central bank cooperation made unprecedented advances among allies in the course of World War I. In 1916, the Bank of England and Bank of France made agreements on bilateral lending, established a direct telegraph line between their respective offices to facilitate communication. Similar formal agreements were made that year between those two banks and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and in 1917, the Bank of Italy opened an office in New York. In the war's immediate aftermath, Dutch central banker Gerard Vissering advocated an international currency without reliance on a common gold pool. Similar ideas burgeoned at the Brussels Conference of 1920, the first major discussion of international financial challenges following the war, endorsed by luminaries such as Belgian Prime Minister Leon de Croix and American banker Frank A. Vanderlip, who suggested reorganizing Europe's national central banks along similar lines to the U.S. Federal Reserve, which he had helped establish in the previous decade. At the Genoa Conference of 1922, following advocacy by several experts that included Ralph Hawtrey, Robert Horn, and John Maynard Keynes, who's responsible for Keynesian economics, a resolution was passed that recommended the creation of an association or permanent understanding for cooperation amongst central banks. So basically they're making like a banking cartel where they're all going to agree to the same prices and the same rates, so you can't do arbitrage and stuff like that. And you're locked in, and they own all the money, and they make sure it's all in a debt form, so the money always flows back because it's given out as debt. Since the money's given out as debt, it's always flowing back to the central bank because you're only getting debt. You're getting credit because they call it credit, but it's actually debt. That's why it's called like a debit card, because you're getting debt. Whenever you get credit, you buy a house with a mortgage or get a car like with a loan, like the money's not there. There's no money there. There's just a paper and a promise. And then when you go to work and you actually get actual money out of the economy, then you have to pay them back. And then the money flows back into the central bank, right? And then so they're making it a conglomerate. It's basically like RICO type stuff. If anybody else was doing this, they would be like RICO'd immediately by like colluding. Oh, we're all going to just fix the price. We're all going to work together and set up a line between all of our businesses, and so we can just talk to each other all the time and make sure that everything's going the same way for all of us. Yeah, that's called collusion. Okay. A resolution was passed that recommended the creation of an association or permanent understanding for the cooperation among central banks, not necessarily limited to Europe, to coordinate credit policies without detriment to the freedom of each individual bank. It was decided to create the Bank for International Settlements in the context of negotiations over World War I reparations, which plagued international relations in Europe throughout the 1920s. Following the Treaty of Versailles, a reparation commission was set up in January 1920 to determine the amount of German reparations. Conferences at Spa in July 1920 and London in March 1921 were followed by the occupation of Ruhr in January 1923 and eventually the Dawes Plan approved at another London conference in July to August 1924. The Dawes Plan allowed for a more constructive atmosphere, materialized in diplomacy by the Locarno Treaties in October 1925 and encouraging Montague Norman, the influential governor of the Bank of England, to envision the creation of what he described in September 1925 as a private and electic central bank club. Small at first, larger in the future. That vision was first materialized at a meeting in early 1927, which brought together Montague and his friend Benjamin Strong, head of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Reichsbank's president Hjalmar Schacht, and the Bank of France Vice Governor Charles Rist at a private home on Long Island. The Bank of Italy had hoped for an invitation but was not included. A second meeting was scheduled in Algeciras but was not held because of the bad health of Strong, who eventually died in October 1928. All right, we're not going to read all this right now. Okay, here we go. It's a lot of history stuff. Okay. Creation. The convention and charter were approved by the Swiss Federal Council and thus obtained force of law on the 26th of February 1930. The governors met that day and the next to formally approve and sign the statutes in Rome, out of consideration for the Bank of Italy's governor, Bonaldo Stringer, who was both the most senior in the group and in poor health. He would pass away in December 1930. Aside from Stringer, who chaired the meeting, the other participants were Vincenzo Azzolini, and Alberto Beneduce. For Italy, the Bank of England Governor Montague Norman and Harry Arthur Seaman. For the UK, the Bank of France Governor Emile Morel, Clement Moret, and Pierre Quince for France. Reichsbank Governor Schacht for Germany. National Bank of Belgium Governor Louis Frank and Paul van Zeeland for Belgium. And for the Bank of Japan, London's representative Tetsubaru Tanaka and diplomat Hiroshi Saito for Japan. Thus, the Bank for International Settlements was formally created in Rome on the 27th of February 1930. The Bank for International Settlements promptly opened its doors in Basel on the 17th of May 1930. Ahead of the first German annuities under the Young Plan due in June. So basically, like, this is what started World War II. They set up this bank to make Germany pay all this money, which caused hyperinflation or whatever in Weimar, and everybody was pissed off. Right. Let's look at some of its early activity. The Bank for International Settlements had a quick start. even though its intended task of facilitating World War I reparations payment soon became obsolete. Even before the founding meeting in Rome, the organization committee had secured a 2-year lease of a convenient building in Switzerland, the former Grand Hotel et Savoy Hotel. Universe, across the street from the Basel railway station. By mid-April, Fraser had arrived from the United States and was working on the Bank for International Settlements' behalf from the Paris office of the Agent General for Reparations Payments, joined by Megara in April. The board members first met for an international meeting in Basel on the 22nd to 23rd of April 1930. And adopted the bank's statutes. They unanimously elected Megara for president of the Bank of International Settlements and chairman of its board, Fraser as alternate president, and Addis, McQuire, and Morau as vice chairman with equal rank. Kuhn-Say was appointed general manager, albeit with the 3 German board members voting against for serious reasons of principle, objecting to the choice of the French national rather than Kuhn-Say as an individual. These foundational decisions were later ratified by the first formal board meeting on 17th of May, 1930, as the April meeting had also agreed that the ordinary meetings of the board would henceforth take place in Basel on the second Monday of each month. On the 17th of May, the Bank for International Settlements opened for business and formally took over the funds, accounts, capital, and records of the Agent General for Reparations Payment. Okay. As a purportedly apolitical organization, the Bank for International Settlements was unable to prevent transactions that reflected the contemporaneous geopolitical realities, but were also widely regarded as unconscionable. As a result of the policy of appeasement of Nazi Germany by UK and France, in March 1939, the Bank for International Settlements transferred 23 tons of gold it held on behalf of Czechoslovakia to the German Reichsbank following the German annexation of Czechoslovakia. The transfer was authorized by both the Bank of England and the Bank of France, which the Bank for International Settlements consulted in a hurry. Montague Norman approved it without consulting the UK Treasury, arguing at the time, "I can't imagine any step more improper than to bring government into the current banking affairs of the Bank for International Settlement. I guess it would mean ruin." The transfer to the Reichsbank of the Czechoslovakia gold reserves has been considered the most controversial action ever taken by the Bank for International Settlements. Right. At the outbreak of World War II, in September 1939, the Bank for International Settlements Board of Directors decided that the bank should remain open, but that, for the duration of hostilities, no meetings of the board were to take place and the bank should maintain a neutral stance in the conduct of its business. The neutral stance, however, was increasingly hard to maintain as the Bank for International Settlements operations were beneficial to an otherwise financially isolated Germany. German conquest disrupted the previous balance within the Bank for International Settlements governance bodies. At their peak, Reichsbank, together with central banks of Nazi-occupied countries, held as much as 64.7% of Bank for International Settlements voting stock. Reichsbank official Emil Pohl went as far as referring to the Bank for International Settlements as the Reichsbank's only real foreign branch. While the board meetings were suspended, annual general meetings continued with shareholder banks voting by proxy. So you see what's happening here, right? This bank for international settlements here. Oh, we'll just remain neutral. You know, World War II, the Holocaust, right? And it's like these are the richest people in the world, but you're supposed to feel bad about it. You're supposed to feel bad about it. Look, and it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Like they're just like, oh well, we'll just remain neutral while we collect all this gold. Okay, so we see how they work, right? They don't care who you are, what you're doing, doesn't matter. As long as you got that money, they will work with you. As long as you're like a country, they don't care. They don't care, right? Okay, so that's the basic thing, right? So here's their website here that we can look at what they talk about. We'll just look at some of these articles. I haven't checked any of this stuff out yet, so we'll just explore it together. I'm kind of interested in this crypto asset standard thing that they're talking about here. Like, this is kind of how I just look at this stuff, I just look and I'm like, okay. Turbulence and resilience. Lessons from an eventful year. This is like yesterday, a meeting from yesterday. Central bank independence in a changing world. Okay. Strengthening financial governance and cooperation amid rapid technological transformation. That's October 28th. And then there's artificial intelligence and central banks, monetary financial stability implications. Let's check this one out. October 8th, from their October 8th meeting. Okay. I guess this is a speech or something. Introduction. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, good afternoon. I am very pleased to join you here at the 6th Global FinTech Fest in Mumbai, a financial hub celebrated for its rich history, vibrant culture, and most importantly, enduring spirit of innovation. Today, central banks operate in a world of rapid transformation. Technology has reshaped not only how financial services are delivered, but also how central banks interact with external stakeholders. Excuse me. Artificial intelligence, AI, stands at the center of this transformation. In my speech this afternoon, I will explore how central banks are using AI to support their operations, the challenges AI poses, and strategies to address the trade-offs central banks encounter in order to reconcile the risks and benefits. Central banks have improved their operations with the use of AI. The adoption of AI has extended to central banks, where it has the potential to enhance efficiency, improve accuracy, and strengthen decision-making processes. AI is making significant impact in three key areas. Data analysis. Central banks are leveraging AI to unlock the potential of both traditional and non-traditional data sources by analyzing diverse data sets from satellite imagery to social media content. AI offers new ways to understand economic activity trends. So this central bank that worked with the Nazis in World War II is using AI to scan social media so that they can figure out what type of economic activity you're going to do. This is the world we're going into. This is the world that, I mean, it's basically here. They're already talking about it. This is like their meeting from like 2 weeks ago. This is the bank that's, you know, when people are like, well, who does America owe the debt to? How do we have a debt? Why do we have so much debt? Who do we owe the money to? We owe the money to them. We owe the money to the Bank for International Settlements. Right? And all these people are like, oh, America was racist and like 0.01% of people owned slaves. Oh, we need reparations. But these guys were working with the Nazis, though. Right? They were working with the Nazis. They're like, oh, Nazis? Oh, that's cool. Got gold? Oh, cool. But you're supposed to feel bad about it, though, right? But you're supposed to feel bad about it. And I'm not saying that it wasn't horrible, but you see what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like, if they don't care. They're talking about scanning social media to figure out how to understand your economic trends. All right. And then natural language processing and large language models, LLM, offer central banks innovative tools to extract insights and analyze survey responses. For instance, the Bank of Canada leverages AI models along with granular data to improve the monitoring of economic activities, banknote demanded and sentiment across key sectors. Okay, part 2, economic forecasting and policy analysis. Central banks use AI alongside human expertise to better understand economies, enhance forecasting or policy analysis. For example, AI has become invaluable for nowcasting, providing real-time assessments of key economic indicators such as GDP growth and inflation. AI analyses analyzes consumption patterns and detects supply chain bottlenecks in real time, offering a clearer understanding of economic dynamics. So the people that run the bank, that runs all the banks in the world, are now using AI to scan basically the entire internet for all transactions, and they're basically at the point where they're now getting real-time economic data. I mean, like, this is like basically like a communist type of dream where they can centrally plan the economy, because this was the problem. This was their argument. This was like one of the best arguments for the free market, was the fact that there was no possible way that you could create a system that was complex enough to centrally plan everything. And so that's why we had to use cash, because, you know, that was the best system. But then they corrupted the cash. They corrupted the cash, and now they want to switch you over to like a monitoring system where they're monitoring everything and all your economic patterns, right? So that they can manipulate it. You notice how you every time you get paid, it's just not enough, because that's what they want. They want you to be in, because think about it, that's their incentive. Their incentive is for you to be in debt, so that when they give you a loan, then real economic activity flows to them, right? So they're incentivized to keep the inflation high. They're incentivized to make sure that the cost of living slightly outpaces your earnings. Think about it. They're incentivized to do this, because the more you borrow, the more you're in debt, the more true economic value flows back to them, right? And now they're using AI to scan all financial transactions to make sure that you can never get ahead. Okay. Machine learning models process vast data sets, uncovering trends and behaviors that often go unnoticed. For example, fine-tuned open source LLMs summarize economic narratives and predict recessions. Neural networks can also leverage detailed data sets to capture complex, nonlinear relationships, providing valuable insights during periods of rapidly changing inflation dynamics. That's just all they're saying right there is they monitoring everything you doing. Every credit card transaction you do on the internet or at your bank or anything, they want to know what you're buying, where you're buying it, how much, who you're buying it for, how much you got left. I'm serious. You think I'm joking? And then as long as you stay in debt, then when you pay them back, then real economic value flows to them. They give you paper and a promise, real economic value flows back to them. Three, payment system oversight and global connectivity. AI is transforming payments systems by enhancing safety, efficiency, and compliance. Tools like graph neural networks improve fraud detection by identifying suspicious transaction networks, especially when data are securely pooled across institutional jurisdictions. See, I mean, safety sounds good. Safety and efficiency sound good. Compliance, that's the one they're getting here. Okay, identifying fraud, that's good. That is good. We can't say that's not good. That's definitely good. Okay, we'll say that's good. Okay. In correspondent banking, which faces challenges from compliance risks, AI could enhance anti-money laundering and know your customer processes, reducing risks and their associated costs, which may restore global payment connectivity. By pooling payment data across jurisdictions, AI strengthens cross-border fraud detection and compliance. That one, it's kind of like, once you start talking about cross-border stuff, it's like, I mean, even the know your customer process thing is kind of, anti-money money laundering too is an interesting thing. Especially in the crypto space, because traditionally, with cash, the only reason why you would need to launder your money is if it was like illegally gained, so that you can spend it after it's been illegally gained. But when you're talking about crypto, and since there's all the blockchains where the data is stored and the transactions are stored, sometimes people will just shift their coins, different coins from, different accounts and do different things, basically because it is theirs. It's their property. And if they purchased it legally, then they can do that and transfer it in ways in which it can no longer be traced from its original source. Right? But that's not illegal, because it would be like saying, like, if you went to the store and bought an orange and then you went to another store and bought another orange and then mixed both of the oranges up so that you didn't know which orange was from which store, like, that's not illegal. But yeah, I mean, obviously actual money laundering, that's bad. Okay. But, you got to watch out for that because they might just make it so, they want to track everything. Central banks are adopting AI to enhance payment infrastructures. The Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub is collaborating with 7 central banks, including the Bank of France, Bank of Japan, Bank of Korea, Swiss National Bank, on Project Agora. Which that's like, I think it's Greek for market. Okay. The project leverages tokenization to implement the next generation of correspondent banking beyond the focus on core features of the unified ledger. AI models may be used in the future to improve efficiencies and compliance practices. What does this correspondent banking mean? What does that mean? I don't like Investopedia. This is where I found out where moral hazard was. Okay. What is a correspondent bank? A correspondent bank serves as an intermediary financial institution, enabling domestic banks to execute cross-border transactions and access foreign financial markets without the need to establish physical branches abroad. So that's basically how they like shift around money through countries without actually having to build a bank there. Okay. I don't know where we're on this. Okay. Central banks face challenges in their policy operations. While the benefits of AI are undeniable, its integration into central banking presents challenges, particularly in monetary policy and financial stability. Here are some pressing issues. Okay. Key technological limitations of AI. Despite advancements, AI models face challenges in logical reasoning and counterfactual thinking. That means kind of like trying to, when you think of something and then you try to like refute your own thought, like coming up with an opposing idea. Struggling to adapt when familiar problems are rephrased. This highlights a lack of true understanding. A major issue is hallucination, where large language models generate plausible but incorrect information rather than ensure factually accurate. I mean, we know most of these already. Many AI models, particularly proprietary ones without open source frameworks, function as opaque black boxes. Their lack of explainability poses challenges for their application in monetary policy and financial stability decisions. The black box nature of AI models also raises concerns about trust, accountability, and compliance with ethical guidelines, compounded by legal risks around data quality, privacy, and confidentiality. Additional risks, referred to as third-party dependence, emerge from reliance on a few providers of advanced AI models, driven by the high cost of developing the data-intensive systems. Monetary policy and transmission effectiveness. AI presents several challenges to monetary policy and its transmission mechanisms, as highlighted in a recent ECB speech and our annual economic report. AI is posed to reshape labor and capital markets, influencing income and wealth distribution. This has significant implications for monetary policy. It affects the marginal propensity to consume, consumption patterns, and access to credit, all which shape how demand responds to policy changes. So they're basically saying that, AI is going to do something to the jobs. AI-driven algorithmic pricing enables faster and more flexible price adjustments. AI-driven see, this is what I'm saying. Like, where now they think that they can do the central planning with the AI and they don't need capitalism anymore to regulate the transactions. I mean, it's one of the tenets of communism is a central bank. Hold up. Let me get that real quick. Okay. Go to this one. Abolition of private property in land and application of all rents of land to public purpose. A heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. Confiscation of the property of all immigrant and rebel. Wait. Oh, okay. So immigrant with an E, that means if you're leaving. Centralization of credit in the hands of the states by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly. The Federal Reserve System, created by the Federal Reserve Act of Congress in 1913, when they decided to start taxing the poor and working class and anyone who does labor, is indeed such a national bank, and it politically manipulates interest rates and holds a monopoly on legal counterfeiting in the United States. This is exactly what Marx had in mind and completely fulfills this plank, another major socialist objective. Yet, most Americans naively believe the US of A is far from a Marxist or socialist nation. See, this is what I'm saying. They just write these blocks of text, and it's like what they're really saying is, they're saying they want to run you with the AI. They're going to figure out exactly what you're doing, everything, how you're spending your money. And then they're going to figure out a way to make sure that you can never save up enough of it to really get anywhere. You see what they're saying? They're saying that they can monitor and manipulate the stocks and all this other stuff. And okay. When we're talking about faster price adjustments, may also reduce the lag between policy actions and their effects on inflation. You see, like, these are the people that are in control of the economy. And no one's even heard of them. And I'm getting like one view on the video, and everybody's fucking trying to figure out what the Epstein files are all about. Yeah. And then you wonder why I stopped making videos. Furthermore, if AI drives any shift in financial structures, such as increased non bank intermediation, it could alter the transmission of monetary policy. See, they're scared of a shift to a different system. Compared with traditional banks, non banks are more responsive to measures targeting longer term interest rates, such as asset purchases, and they tend to carry greater credit liquidity and duration risks. Okay, here we go. Financial stability risks. The integration of AI into financial systems presents financial stability risks that central banks and policymakers must address. AI's rapid real time responses may increase volatility and herding behavior. Interesting word there. Creating destabilizing feedback loops. Liquidity risks may also arise. Liquidity means like cash in the system, like how much cash is moving around in the system. AI models might prompt widespread liquidity hoarding and trigger fire sales, further destabilizing markets. That means when the price starts going down and people have a lot of money invested and they don't want to lose all their money, then they start to sell. And then that makes the price go down faster because everybody sees that the price is going down. So they start selling too. And then the selling makes the price go down. So basically, yeah, it can really cause some problems. Okay. As institutions increasingly rely on AI and reduce dependence on human expertise, the widespread use of similar algorithms could amplify market movements. For instance, if numerous institutions adopt comparable AI models for credit risk, trading, or portfolio management, synchronized responses during periods of stress could exacerbate procycliactically and trigger large-scale asset sell-offs. Algorithmic collusion is another risk. AI trained on similar data sets may unintentionally produce coordinated recommendations or pricing strategies, mimicking collusion. What do you mean mimicking collusion? You guys are running an AI that's running the entire economy of the entire world, and they're like, "Oh, we might mistake something for collusion." And undermining competition. Where is it? No, can you start a central bank? Can you just start like giving people pieces of paper and then demanding that they give you actual cash back? No, I don't think you can do that. Traditional regulatory frameworks may struggle to address these challenges. Okay. Cyber risks and ethical considerations. Cyber criminals are increasingly leveraging AI to craft more seemingly convincing phishing emails, develop malicious code, and mimic voices or writing styles. This has fueled a surge of phishing, fraud, and ransomware attacks. Additionally, AI introduces new and evolving risks, such as prompt injection and data poisoning, which can compromise training data and undermine the integrity of systems. Oh, yeah, that data poisoning? Yeah, that's real. people figured out how to like mess up the AI. I was trying to figure that out, but like, yeah, if you're one of these people that is against the AI and you want to figure out how to mess up the AI, check into data poisoning. It was something that I was thinking about, that it was a possible thing how to like mess up the AI, but whoever like, they're like geniuses, just like research that and you can actually find out some different ways where it's like, messing up people's AIs so that they can't just like scan all your stuff basically when you're like doing stuff. Like basically they won't be able to like steal your original work. If you use data poisoning properly, then like say you put out a video or music or something like that, then when the AI scans it, it won't scan it as the thing that you created. It'll scan it as some other thing and it'll basically, so check that type of stuff out. Okay, let's move on. The ethical use of AI is crucial to maintaining public trust. Central banks have a responsibility to ensure that AI systems are transparent, fair, and free from bias. However, AI systems can unintentionally reflect biases present in their training data, potentially leading to unfair outcomes. For example, algorithmic discrimination in credit scoring could exclude certain groups from accessing financial products, thereby exacerbating inequalities. AI also raises significant concerns regarding privacy. The misuse or abuse of sensitive information poses serious risks to individuals. Financial institutions and AI providers must adopt and adhere to strict privacy standards to safeguard personal data and uphold public trust. A noteworthy initiative in this area is the Free AI Committee report by our colleagues at the Reserve Bank of India. The report introduces a framework for responsible and ethical enablement in the financial sector and exemplifies how central banks can lead in promoting responsible AI adoption. That sounds good. By addressing key ethical and operational challenges, it provides a robust and forward-looking blueprint that sets a high standard for the global central banking community. All right. I mean, I can read it, but I don't know about the time though. Let's read this one. All right. Central banks face policy trade-offs. As central banks explore the transformative potential of AI, they face complex trade-offs that demand careful consideration. One of the key decisions revolves around choosing between external and in-house AI models and data sources. External models and commercial data vendors provide cost efficiency, rapid deployment, and access to private sector expertise. However, they come with challenges such as reduced transparency, increased dependency on a limited number of providers, and stricter usage restrictions. On the other hand, in-house models and curated internal data offer greater control and adaptability, but require significant investments in infrastructure, skilled personnel, and robust governance frameworks. Another critical challenge lies in balancing speed and accuracy. AI's ability to enable rapid, real-time analysis is invaluable for timely decision-making. However, this speed must be tempered by efforts to mitigate risks such as hallucinations, biases, and vulnerabilities like prompt injection attacks. I need to look into that. They scared of that. They scared of a prompt injection for real. They're like, is the prompt injection in the room with me now? To ensure that the insights generated are both reliable and trustworthy. The potential of AI to automate routine tasks and enhance efficiency is undeniable. Human judgment remains indispensable. Central banks must cultivate teams with a balanced mix of economic expertise and technical skills to effectively oversee and interpret AI-driven insights, ensuring that human oversight complements technological advancements. Overall, achieving the right balance between performance, cost, and control is vital for central banks to successfully adopt AI. Central banks must thoughtfully evaluate immediate short-term investments against the long-term benefits. The role of the Bank for International Settlements in supporting central banks. So, how can institutions like the Bank for International Settlements help central banks navigate the evolving landscape of AI? At the Bank for International Settlements, we provide support to central banks through three key avenues. Forum for discussion. We offer a space for central banks to exchange insights and build a community around emerging technologies. For example, our research conferences, workshops, and networks explore research frontiers and provide knowledge on their implications for central banks. So they're going to have a conference for the AI? Okay. Platform for international cooperation. We facilitate collaboration among central banks and regulators to uphold monetary and financial stability. Through committees such as the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures, we address the challenges and opportunities posed by the digital revolution. This enables us to exchange best practices, forge consensus, and enhance governance regimes for AI adoption. Experimental innovation. Through the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, we enable central banks to experiment with cutting-edge technologies. For instance, Project Aura uses AI to enhance monitoring of suspicious transactions across firms and borders. By fostering discussion, collaboration, and experimentation, the Bank for International Settlements helps central banks to harness the potential of AI while mitigating risks. Okay. So that's their AI pitch, basically. Conclusion. To conclude, AI presents transformative opportunities for central banks, enhancing efficiency, decision-making, and financial infrastructure, from advanced data analysis to improved oversight of payment systems. AI is already reshaping central bank operations. However, challenges such as data quality, model complexity, ethical concerns, and financial stability risks must be carefully addressed. To fully realize the potential of AI, central banks must balance its benefits with its risks. Transparency, robust governance, and talent development are essential to navigating this evolving landscape. As stewards of monetary and financial stability, central banks have a responsibility to adopt AI in a safe, ethical, and sustainable manner. The Bank for International Settlements is dedicated to supporting this journey by fostering dialogue, promoting international cooperation, and enabling innovation. Thank you. All right, we're going to do all that. So basically, they are scared of some prompt injections, attacks, and they really want to monitor everything you do. And they're kind of worried that AI might, in some way, when they're saying AI, I think they're just talking about a lot of like crypto stuff too. They might be talking about, they're not specifically talking about it, but I think they're kind of worried that AI can start moving so fast that it would undermine what they're doing, their scam, basically. And so they want to use it. They're going to use it to monitor you. They're going to use it to manipulate the markets, set the inflation rates. But they're also scared that someone else might come up with one that's going to undermine what they're doing. And they're also scared of prompt injections. Gotta hit them with that prompt. They scared of that. They're like, is the prompt in the room with you now? All right. All right. I might be back later. Who knows? It's always one of those pop-up things. Might come back with a prompt injection. Who knows? All right. But I'm going to get out of here for now. I got to take care of some more stuff. Talk to you in a bit or later. Oh, wait. I almost forgot about that. What did that David Icke one? Check out. They got Atlas Shrugged for free, Pi for free, and this Skull. Oh, you got to watch it. If that's like conspiracy, serious conspiracy stuff. The Skulls, They Live. Yeah. These two are great. Pi more for the esoteric. Atlas Shrugged for my libertarian buddies. They got a lot of movies up here. Free. Check them out. All right. Peace.